got me here now.
All righty. So I'm going to give you the presentation, and then we can reconnect for any additional follow-up that you would like to make.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to start off with 5 or 6 highlights. Then I'll give you the big picture, the ecosystem,
Okay.
and then I'll give you the 3 punchlines, and then the action steps.
So do me one favor. Just give me your quick 10-second backstory, where you live, where you're from, how old you are, family, whatever you want to just tell me about yourself so I understand who you are, and then we'll get down to business.
My name is Raghu-nomics, 3rd-generation Italian-American, grew up as a Hare Krishna kid. Mom sent me to India to go study the Vedas, was a preacher for about 10 years. I got into real estate business, and in the last 20 years, I've been working on what started off as an essay and has now become a 26-book series called Raghu-nomics.
Wow.
And the
6-book series, Raghu-nomics.
Awesome. So I decided to run for office once I discovered that we stumbled upon the simple solution to the entire real estate, banking, market, and deficit crisis. And it's just too many moving parts for journalists and most people to have been able to follow. But this is actually from 2007 crisis. So at that time,
by the way, where do you live now?
I'm in Hawaii on the Big Island in Hilo. I don't know if you've been out here, but
no, never out there, but I hear amazing things.
I think that we will be getting you out here shortly.
Okay.
I'll give you details of that.
Single, kids, family. What's your background?
Thrice married, 2 kids. Presently single. I've actually was the full-time caregiver for my mom, so I had to leave my wife in Switzerland to do that. So just getting over that, and the family politics of, the deceased. So that was about a year in the making, and $100,000, of legal fees.
Okay.
So you are pretty much the first out of the door after that 4-year hiatus taking care of my mom.
Well, I'm honored. I'm sorry to hear what you've been dealing with, and I'm all ears now. We got it out of the way, and let's get to Raghu-nomics.
All righty. So Rada Mortgage is a mortgage program that we developed, that I developed with some financial institutions on the East Coast. It reduces people's monthly payments by an average of 50%. We can get that down to 70% if necessary, and still gives them a 20% equity by year 5. It is the first and only mortgage product for a depreciating real estate market, which is to say that we could take over all markets where you have that market correction in play, as we do now. The problem that we had in coming up with it back in 2008 is when we finalized it, was the market had already collapsed 50%, so there was no need for a new financial product that would reduce the cost. So 3 marriages and lots of drama. Later, the market has now come back into play with an exact scenario of what we had in 2007, with the difference being that it's now between double and 3 times more severe. And so here's the highlights of it. So we can get into the details of how the Rada mortgage works on a different call. But to me, it's painting the broader picture for you because you're a journalist. So once we had these financial institutions, we cleared it with the accountants, we cleared it with the lawyers, and we cleared it commercially as a usable product for the financial institutions. Then we went to start writing out what the benefits and impact of the larger impact. And so the advantage that we had with 2007 is everything was just so absurdly over the top exaggerated. So we had the banks going under, we had Wall Street collapsing, we had the federal government going in and buying out all these assets, and therefore the so-called U.S. debt was in fact nothing more than the securities. And so the punchline being that or rather the simple summation being, is that if you took care of the homeowner, you would automatically take care of the banks. You would automatically take care of Wall Street, and you would automatically take care of that U.S. debt. So today, as an example, it appears that out of the $35 trillion, which everyone says we can't pay back, my rough estimate is that a minimum of 10 trillion of that is in real estate assets, probably closer to 15, possibly 20. So that means that if we were to roll out the RADA mortgage program nationwide and just refinance all real estate holdings under the RADA mortgage, first of all, we've just cut the debt in half of the entire U.S. debt, like everyone, because 80% of 90% of people's debt is their mortgages. You cut that in half. They are now, and in some cases, it'd be 100%. So today's average home is 400,000 versus the 200,000 back in 2007. So at 200,000, people could afford to buy a home as an individual. Now it takes two people. If we're able to reset where we've cut those costs in half, then you've actually reduced the cost burden by as much as 100% for the people that are no longer needed. So we've also then doubled, and more likely in a number of cases, tripled people's disposable income. So, so we're going to have significantly more money, but because we just cut people's debt in half, and the real estate market, all the Wall Street financial products that are real estate related are now going to be significantly safer, and we will be charging a higher interest rate as well. Wall Street's going to now go through the roof, and that means that the 10 to 15 trillion dollars that the U.S. That the federal government is holding in real estate securities, they'll be able to retire to the market. So we just cut our federal debt in half, which is to say the U.S. dollar is going to double or triple in value. So we'll have more money. It's going to be able to buy more with it. So those are the highlights. The big boogeyman in today's financial system is the coming commercial real estate payments due this year, and especially next year and the year after. And you don't have to wait for the banks to start defaulting on those in order for the market to jumpstart pulling out of the banks. So the mere mention that we now have a mortgage program that will automatically resolve that real estate issue means that the banks are no longer going to be under threat of getting dumped. And therefore and in fact, if we're talking about refinancing at least the distressed properties or overpriced assets, not even if they're distressed, that in of itself will also again recalm market. So that's the reason why I was saying is that in today's narrative, what we have is that you have the real estate market, it's getting ready to go under. You have the commercial real estate, they're getting ready to go under. You have the banks are getting ready to go under. You have Wall Street, and they're going to collapse. And then you have the U.S. debt, and that's getting out of control. And you have the U.S. dollar. And so we have this narrative of 6 things that are getting ready to collapse, when in fact they're all just the same thing related to the U.S. Mortgage program. And so just the narrative of that is going to completely reset the financial picture. So those are the highlights. Now for the broad picture, is that what we're talking about is an actual ecosystem. So in today's financial industries, each industry is treated as an island unto itself. Once we introduce it, it's actually an extension of a broader picture. Then the storyline will change dramatically, and the answers will also change. So we give the example of, I don't know if you heard about this, but the environmentalists were beaten up pretty hard on Japan for killing their whales. And so then Japan said, okay, well, we're actually going to have to kill the whales in order to save our fish because they're eating so many fish. And then somebody went off. You heard about this one? So they went and did a study, and that they found that the whales were in fact generating significantly more food supply for the fish. Therefore, they were providing significantly more fish than they were eating. So by not killing the whales, you were in fact dramatically expanding your food supply of fish. And once the Japanese found that out, they completely reversed course of trying to protect the whales rather than looking for excuses of why they should kill them. And there's a number of stories of that. And so this is an example of the kinds of things that happen, which seems almost counterintuitive once you understand the entire ecosystem. And so what we're introducing is an introduction of what the financial ecosystem is as it relates to real estate. So it actually represents between 30 to as much as, depending on which industry, 80% of those industries, even though there's no direct correlation clearly defined in today's narrative. So that's the reason I'm so excited about getting back to you, because you are in the broadcast business. But the reason why I'm absolutely thrilled and was like falling out of my chair when you responded is that you guys are actually working with investors as well. And so that's where the punchline is. So the three punchlines is, number one, introducing this broader picture. Once you understand that ecosystem, there's 1,001 ways in which you will respond to that. The Rada mortgage exaggerated the issue so dramatically because it's a 50% reduction, but there's any number of other ways that can play out. Secondly, is that changing that narrative is going to reset the entire parameters of the discourse of where America is, which is to start off by saying that we have significantly less debt than we imagined, starting at 25%, and in some industries as much as 80% less debt. So I have 2 books on the Rada mortgage, and I have 2 books on leverage debt reduction, which is to simply say we have all these mirror debts. And how that plays out, we can have for another conversation, but it's mind-boggling, and we'll find that we actually have, on a regular basis, 50% less debt than we imagine.
Sure.
And then last but not least is once we know that this will reset the narrative, then we know that any number of markets are going to absolutely boom. And so we want to prepare, put into place a number of companies that will be able to take advantage of that, because we're now going to be setting the market trends with this new narrative. And so the action step in closing is to set up the companies in preparation before we release the narrative. So I always wanted to go to Wall Street and investment groups first before taking it to market. And the great thing about you guys is you are both. And so if we can study these in more detail, see which industries are going to be dramatically impacted by this beforehand, and then release it, we are talking about making monies as rarely, if ever, has happened before, because it's 2007 all over times 2.
Wow. So I know we're running out of time, but I wrote down a lot of notes. Understanding the concept and the narrative, your 3 keys right there. Reset the narrative. There's actually a lot less debt than we actually think. And then number 3, how the markets and the companies will benefit and boom from resetting, or in some cases reverse engineering what is currently going on. I understand, I guess, from a high level what you're doing. I think the next step is whatever the action steps are, getting into the nitty gritty. So
the action steps is going over the details and setting up the businesses that are now going to be in place to be able to take advantage of that shift, starting with the Rada mortgage.
Okay. So we're about to end, but shoot me a message. I'm interested in another conversation